Hi, hello.
Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to our fifth session of 2021. If some of you were in our Teams Nation session last week, please comment in the YouTube comments so we can cheer you for attending also last week. But today we are live for the next hour, and our agenda is as follows. So first, I, Karoliina Kettukari, will give you a short introduction and welcome. Then we will have very interesting sessions and discussions today. So first of all, Laurent is going to tell us a short introduction to our theme of today, which is lessons learned in Teams adoption and change management in education. And after Laurent's presentation, we have a panel discussion with our super guest stars with Laurent, Luise, and Marcin. And the panel discussion is moderated by our very own Michael. Yay! Great job in advance. Sure. So who are we? We are the Teams ACM Europe user group. So Karoliina, Alexander, Amanda, Michael, and Edita. And we are hosting these sessions once a month. And this is actually our last session for the spring to 2021. But of course, we will return in the autumn as well. But now it's time for our first section of today. Laurent will tell you all about lessons learned in Teams ACM in education.
Okay, thanks Karoliina for the introduction. I will share right now my screen. Okay, I think you have it. Can you give me a go?
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay, perfect. So thanks all of you. Thanks ACM Europe Teams for invitation. A little bit about myself. My name is Laurent Carlier. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant from France with various certification like Microsoft MVP, ProSci Change Practitioner for change management expertise, and MI Master Trainer for education expertise. As some of you, I'm very active and speak regularly in worldwide events. I was in Teams Nation last week. I was also in Scottish Chemis and also in Teams Day Online and also Teams Fest. If you want to reach me, you can reach me by Twitter or LinkedIn. And yes, since last year, I work a lot on the education side and I train more than 60 schools worldwide on their digital journey. So to begin, a simple question: what happened to school since 1 year? And yeah, I found a nice illustration that you might know, showing years and years waiting until COVID-19 appears with one question: who led the digital transformation for, not the company, for your schools? And I saw many schools that the answer would have been the COVID-19. So considering that aspect, let's take a moment to consider some of the challenge that was very brutal, that was very challenging for schools. And the first challenge was, before the COVID, a lot of schools never thought about digital strategy, and now they had to build quickly a digital strategy. Before COVID, a lot of schools was on the on-premise world, which is on-site restricted. If I want to use computer, if I want to access resource, I have to be at schools. And now they have to go to cloud world, which is basically I can learn, I can teach from anywhere with any device I want. Before the COVID, a lot of school was device oriented. And what I'm saying about this, I think about particularly iPad schools or PC schools, they probably saw that device only were not enough, especially if you want to set up online classes. So now they have to go device, but they have to set up a cloud into the device. Before the COVID, there was no IT staff in a lot of schools, and now they understood, the really importance to have an IT on site and not an external. Before the COVID, a lot of schools were paper-based teaching, and now they had to make digital resource. And last, before COVID, a lot of schools had no notion of change management, and now they have to break silos and get everyone on board. Why I'm saying break silos? Because in a lot of schools, you might understand that physical teachers or mathematics teachers do not want to speak with language teachers, and because of this, there are many silos inside the schools. And what I'm saying, get everyone on board. This is really important. It will concern the school leaders, it will concern the educators, it will concern the students, and it will concern also the IT staff. That's what I want to explain right now. So no notion of change management is not a good thing. And in change management, the first thing that you have to do, if you have not done yet, is to communicate your vision. Why do you need a vision? Because basically in schools you have many roles. You have the IT staff, you have the administrator and faculties, you have teachers, students, and parents. And this is very different from companies, from business side. In business side, you do not have a lot of roles like this. And why it is important to think about a vision, because if you are thinking about the parents need to understand why you're going to Microsoft 365 platform. Students are very dependent on good practice of teachers on Microsoft 365. Teachers are dependent on good IT governance and also are dependent on school leadership. The administrative faculty must lead the example, and the IT must have a user-friendly governance. This is really important, and I think it is the same thing for the companies. Many IT has a very strict governance, and when you have a very strict governance, it will definitely not help the perfect adoption of the technologies. So why do you need a vision? Because you have to answer to these questions. Where do you want to go? And yes, it will continue beyond the pandemic. This is also very important. I saw many teachers, I saw many schools who thought that Microsoft Teams will be over after the pandemic, and it will probably not be the case. So where do you want to go? Why you are going there? How you are going there? Who are going there? And when you are going there? And then what cultural change you have to set up before I talk about the silos inside schools. What risk if you do not change? This is important to consider risk. And why Microsoft 365? I put this inside brackets because it is usually a question for parents' side, and maybe sometimes you can find parents who are very fine, very a fanboy or fangirl of Google or Apple. So you have to really communicate for parents. It is not a problem to have Microsoft 365, and Microsoft 365 will have these benefits, and that's why you have to communicate your vision. The second thing is, once you have your vision, you need to communicate inside the school. This is very important. Why? Because on the teacher side, teachers can be very afraid of cloud platforms, and they will search that kind of answer. What's in it for me? What are the benefits of the platform? Who is going to help me? When it will happen? And how will I be trained? those questions are crucial. If you do not have answer to this question, that it might be that your vision is not good and you have to rethink about your planning. And on the student side, I know that this illustration is very good, and I saw many examples of schools with teachers doing their teaching practice in their way, and then they use many tools inside the same schools. Some teachers use mail, some teachers use Discord, some teachers use Dropbox, some teachers use Google Drive, some teachers use OneDrive, and this is not good. If you are using OneDrive with students, this is not the way it has to be. Some teachers use SharePoint with students, and this is maybe not the good thing, and some teachers use Teams. So please, if you are an educator or if you are school leaders, please don't think about your comfort, think about the students' comfort. This is very important because students right now are getting lost if every educators inside the school is using a different tool. So what tool for what? This is also a nice reflection to have. After communicate, you have to have a good guidance. If I'm taking the user perspective, and this is specific for educational tenant, when you create a team, basically you have 4 type of teams. You have class teams, the PLC teams, the staff teams, and the other teams. Those 4 types of teams are very different, especially considering the OneNote. I will talk about this later. And if you create, for example, a class and you made a mistake and you want to change a class team to a PLC team, it will not be possible. So be aware of this. Think really carefully when you're creating teams. In user perspective, I saw many bad errors considering the architecture of teams. If you have no guidance from digital champions, for example, then teachers will create a class with an unique general channel. This is not the way it has to be. Or teachers will create a class teams with 32 more channels. Can you imagine 32 more channels for students? It is not the way it has to be. Or some teachers create a general and then private, 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 private. This is no sense if you're creating a team, especially a Teams class. If you have an open channel, the general channel, and then after a series of private channels, I don't understand the sense of being in the Teams. So be aware of this. The guidance is very important to have. So no and no. Why it is also important when you are using the Teams class. When you're using the Teams class, you have a really good tool called OneNote, and you have to use OneNote. Why I'm saying this? Because the OneNote, this is the education version of OneNote, and it has very good space. The first space is contents library, where teachers will put some resources, and by default, this is only a view only for students, and teachers can obviously modify. You have the collaboration space where everyone can modify. You have the teacher only space if teachers want to prepare their resource. And then after, you have the individual student portfolio. As you might see, by default, you have a view only or write permission. And when you are not using OneNote, the trick part is that teachers will have to go to SharePoint, and in SharePoint, they will have to change the permission level. And one more time, this is not the way it has to be. When you are an educator working in a Teams class, you do not have to use the SharePoint permission. There is no need to use the SharePoint permission. just put all your resources in OneNote Education. This is important to have in mind. Why do you need guidance in user perspective? Is because in Teams you have chat, you have assignment. This is specific for education version. You have files, you have OneNote. I talk about this, and you have also a nice tool called Insight, and this tool is specific to education. And these tools will help educators to track every student's activity inside Teams. This is good. This is very perfect for online classes if you want to see what students are doing, which students are doing what files, what are they doing right now. Then you can use this nice tool called Insight. Then the question will be, on top of all that, do I need an LMS? I'm thinking about a really known LMS starting with the letter M. And when schools using LMS plus Teams, it is very tricky, because in that way, many teachers will want to stay in LMS side and will tell you that in Teams class, they do not want assignment, they do not want files, they do not want OneNote, they do not want Insight, they just want to have the chat, and they just want to have the call option, the video option, and the audio option. And in that way, the question will be, okay, so you do not need this, you do not need this, you do not this OneNote, you do not this Insight. So what's the purpose to use Teams? So in case you have an LMS, you have really to think if it is important to keep the LMS, or if you want to change all of the resources to be insert in Microsoft 365 platform. In an IT perspective, why do you need a guidance? This is also very crucial, because when you create a tenant, especially an educational tenant, by default, it is open bar. What means open bar is that all users are put in the same roles. That means students will be able to do everything they want. Teachers will be able to do everything they want. And when you are thinking about the IT perspective, this is not good. So if you are an IT working in the schools, then my recommendation will be some questions. Have you controlled the teams, the group creation? If not, you have to do this, because if you have not controlled the teams or group creation, then students will be able to create teams. That's not what you want to do. Do you have a naming policy? This is also very important. I saw many schools who create teams with the name of, for example, class 3A, but class 3A, what happened? Next year, what happened? Will it be the same? Will it be the same students? So no, this is not the class 3A, but it will be better the school year. For example, 2021 class 3A. So this is important to have a specific naming policy. Do you have an expiration? Do you have an archive policy? Did you set up some policy in OneDrive or SharePoint, especially for students? And in Teams Admin Center, have you configured who can add private channels? This is very important to know. You can set up specific policies, and I highly recommend that these policies will be available only for the IT or some specific people inside schools, to prevent the sprawl of creation of private channels. Have you configured messaging policies? Have you configured meeting policies? This is also very important, especially when you are doing online classes. If you did not anything, then students will be able to do a lot of bad things inside online classes. So if you do not want your teachers to be afraid to have online classes with students, then you have to build a very strong messaging and meeting policies? Have you configured the application policies? And have you configured the calling policies? So this is very important to have all of this inside your strategy. And I will end quickly my presentation with this phrase: the change management is not an option, is not a luxury. It is not about changing individuals, but about changing the culture of an entire organization or an entire schools. This is important. Most of schools think that change management will be watching videos on YouTube or doing some specific training without anything after. It is not change management. So be aware to really think about the vision, the communication, the training, yes, the training, but the digital champion teams, and then assess the change management, and then readapt if needed the change management process. That was on my side. I think we will have a nice discussion on it. So please, Alexander or Karoliina.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Laurent, for that presentation. I do have a lot of questions, actually. But before I start, or before we dive into that table talk, please let me welcome Luise and Marcin once again. Hello there. And we've heard a little bit from Laurent now, from his experience. And could you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of an insight? What's your experience with ACM Teams M365 in the educational area? What makes you an expert on this topic?
Oh, okay. So I see Marcin is taking another sip of his coffee, so I will go first. Hi, I'm Luise. I'm from Germany. I do M365 consultancy, and in Germany, I run the so-called Hochschul community, which is a community of university IT experts, and they all struggle with M365 and Teams and how to roll it out in their universities and special needs of security and compliance and adoption and governance and everything in that. And I run this community and help them move to the cloud.
Thank you very much. Awesome.
So now me. My name is Marcin. I'm from Poland. I'm also Microsoft 365 consultant. I speak a lot about Teams in communities, and I work with Teams in Microsoft 365. But last year I had a lot of higher education with Teams, so that's I collect a lot of experience, good and bad. So I think it's a lot. I have a lot to share.
Okay, thank you. So, as I first had heard about this topic, I thought doing ACM and Teams and M365 in the educational area must be easy, right? Because you're talking to people who are familiar with learning and how learning goes, and basically you're giving the perfect platform to do all that. You have special functionalities, so it is easy, right?
Totally.
No, yeah, actually, you know, the teachers are very how can I say, not to be brutal, but they have to be, you know, they are very afraid about the cloud platform. What is cloud? Why do I need to put my resource in cloud? This is my resource. This is not the cloud resource. And, you know, that kind of things, you know, you have to fight with that. And when they have something new, they have to step outside, you know, the comfort zone, and this is not natural for most of teachers. So they have to be, you know, they have to be, how can I say? They have to be helped, and they have to really understand that it is the way it has to be. And yes, you will be helped, and yes, many people will help you to, you know, to to go on these stairs. So yeah, this is not easy. And the second thing I saw that most of schools leaders do not have any notion about change management. They think that the digital project, this is an IT project. A digital project is not an IT project. A digital project is a human side project. So I think this is the same in companies, because I'm working also with companies. So yeah, you have to, say that many times to really say that when you are doing a digital project, you have to you have to speak to school leaders, you have to speak to IT staff, you have to speak to educators, you have to speak to students, and you have to speak to families, especially in schools. So yeah, that's my point.
That's a big group of stakeholders, but I guess okay. So you say it's not easy. Marcin, Luise, how about you? You have better experiences, right? Like.
Yeah, so obviously it's totally easy. So there are no issues at all convincing people to change their behavior. This is why. So I'm not needed anymore, because they just changed their own behavior. No, of course not. So my audience is less the educators or instructors or doctors, but it's more the IT stuff, which means admins. And so this is somehow they're just like a little bit more laggard than the ones that I know from companies like big business or small enterprises, because everything is very, very slow in a university. And it's not that just because they deal with learning and teaching that they like to learn as well. So they like to be in that state of, I know everything, and we've always done it like this before, and we will be doing it in 10 or 20 or 50 years as well, because they don't see time passing like I do this. It's more that they count in decades than in weeks. And so change is not obviously inevitable for them. And this makes it kind of hard to let them understand why they would need to change that, because yet again, they probably might think, hey, this too shall pass. So this pandemic will soon be over, and then I don't need to change my own behavior. So then I can still work on paper or still write on the chalkboard or whatever that is. And moving to cloud is scary for them because they do not understand, because there is no digital literacy or no profound understanding. So yeah, it's kind of hard.
Now that sounded like you're talking about businesses now or educational area. But that sounds like a lot of the problems I have on a daily basis, and I don't work in the education area, so I wasn't a little bit confused.
Yeah, so sorry for confusing you. So probably the problems will stay the same, but the in educational area, the students, so our actual users, they do not have any problem at all. So they just say, I don't care. So they don't care which tool they need to use. They just adapt quickly and move on. And it's more like the instructors that do have a problem, because why I need to change now, and this is my data, and I don't understand this, and sorry, I was on mute. So it's just like, so they cause these problems, and they have the problems, and then we have some stuff like, yeah, but the instructors, they don't want to be in the same tenant as the students, because then those students could just like text them in Teams, and we don't want that, because what could happen if we just like communicate, right? Yeah.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing you say is there is a difference between like the younger ages and students and the instructors, like teachers or all the stuff around it. Marcin, have you similar experience?
Well, my wife is a university teacher, and I thought that Teams in education, the projects will be the best project in my life, but no. Regardless, a lot of issues, and yeah, open bar is. I saw open bar in every single university in Poland, with Teams. So it looks like university management forgot about teachers and about students and just enable tool and let it go, use it. Yeah, why not? It's tool like any other one. And yeah, teachers were left alone without any training. Younger teachers, okay, they can read something, try something, but older teachers, there's a lot of training, a lot of talk needs. So yeah, they were left alone. But about students, well, yeah, and they don't care about tools. They can use anything. They hack anything. So it's quite easy for them to adapt to do anything they want. Yeah, and use open bar. Yeah, create funny teams, funny classes names, and talk about beers in Teams.
The term open bar is I like that.
It might be a typical French, expression, but I think it's good.
I will use it from now on.
I will adapt it.
Absolutely. So, but just to get this clear, we are talking about universities, right? So
I was talking about the K-12 or higher ed, higher education. This is the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what I've learned in the presentation right now, there are educational tenants from Microsoft, right?
Exactly.
Laurent, you talked about that. And there are different functionalities. I've seen that. Let me see where in my notes I've seen you have like different spaces in OneNote for teachers and pupils and stuff. Can I have that for business as well, please?
No, this is what you have to understand in a business side. The OneNote is a typical, okay, I have OneNote, then I create section, I create pages, and if I want to have this section read-only, then I have to set up a read-only. But what is good with the educational tenant is that you do not have to set anything. This is made by default. So when you create a Teams class, it comes with the education version of OneNote. And when you are teachers, you do not have to think about, okay, if I'm putting this file, if I'm putting this resource, do I have to change the permission to read only? No. This is set by default. So that is good, when you are really using the OneNote education version inside Teams. But the thing is that most of IT do not know about OneNote, and they think that, okay, OneNote, this is like my personal OneNote, so this is useless. No, it's not useless. You have to really understand that it is not your OneNote personal version. This is the education version of OneNote. That is a big difference.
Yeah, and I think this all roots back to the use case and how we use OneNote in education and how we do use it for personal usage or even for collaboration in business and enterprise. Because in business and enterprise, we'll have a decent system for document management. And this is very important as we deal with documents and with records. And in classroom, regardless if it's higher education or in primary school, it's more like that I give assignments and that I need to provide a certain set of material to my class. And then the class will, and each and every person in that class will work on that. So they will create a lot of versions. And in this case, this is intended. While in business, we need to avoid that. So this comes naturally with these features that we do have by default in educational OneNote, but do not have by default in business OneNote.
Interesting. So that means I do have a different use case behind it, which makes sense, and I have different functionalities within the applications and tools. Doesn't it make it very difficult for somebody, for like a consultant, for example, to be in any help with that? Because that sounds like a whole new world.
It is. So thank you for the music.
Exactly.
Okay, I just see we have a question from the audience. As you can see, there's a lot of space for MCTs to educate teachers in this area, but the question is, are teachers willing to educate or treat O365 as devil but necessary?
It depends.
What do you think?
It depends.
On what? Please elaborate your thoughts.
Well, I work with technical universities, and they love cloud systems, they love software, etc. So it's quite easy to talk with them about cloud, about Teams, with teachers, with management, but not with IT. IT is well, they don't like new tools. They like to create their own tools. That's and they need to maintain that tools, but who cares? So they are well. IT guys are enemies for that. To start working with teachers, because they try everything, every single idea, how to use Teams, what to use Teams, OneNote, or integrate with LMS. But teachers, from my perspective, they are very happy, and they love to learn and to teach others.
It sounds great. So I guess it is easy in the end.
So once I asked instructors if they really want to continue for the next 15 years to copy and copy and copy the same worksheets over and over again that they already use and reuse since 1995, they get quite embarrassed and then perhaps make this change. So
I'm totally agree with Luise.
I think it's just like about time, and someone needs to tell them. And I volunteer for this job.
Yeah, and you might add also that the mission of teacher is to prepare students for the future world, the next world. And you might know that the future world, whatever the company students will be working, they will have a cloud. So if you are not using cloud right now, then it's not a good, a good way to prepare students in the next future world. If you're looking at the recruit, the jobs offer, then you might see that on the skills, right now they put a lot of focus on can you collaborate, can you communicate, do you know cloud, can you co-write? How are you doing this without cloud? Can you tell me? There's no answer with that, So yeah, I'm agree with Luise. Yeah.
So, and would that something that you would consider like the main challenge in the educational area, or are there main challenges for outsiders like me and others?
The main challenges for me is really to when you are talking about cloud in schools, you have to have this discussion with the school leaders, with the IT staff, and with a representative of teachers. This is important to have these three parts. It will have no change if IT is not present. It will have no change if school leaders will not show the example. They have to be. It is, as I said just before, this is a change in the entire schools, in the entire organization. So everyone is on the same boat, and they have to work together. That is the challenge for me. And because of that, in most schools, they have no, fluid communication between school leaders and IT, and educators and school leaders. And sometimes educators say, okay, IT is not talking the language I'm talking. and in the contrary, this is the same thing. So yeah, they have to learn to communicate. The purpose is to prepare the students for the next world, and the purpose also is to set up a really comfort zone for students. And you might understand if everyone is doing his own thing at its own path, then students will be very confused about this.
Once again, this sounds as if we are talking about regular businesses, actually.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
But before we open the GDPR question from Alex, maybe Marcin, do you have a different main challenge from what Laurent just?
Yeah, for me it's to gather all important people from university and talk with them about their needs, their fears, and how to connect every single piece in this puzzle. Because in a university, there's always a lot of tools, a lot of different tools, a lot of different needs. One faculty use some kind of stuff, other faculty use something totally different. They have totally different needs and educate in different way, and teach in different way. And to make it work, you must talk with every single department, faculty, and yeah, you can't forget about IT, because they must maintain the stuff, and they must do some integration, because it's important to integrate LMS or something, or some identity storage to Teams, with Teams. And yeah, if you forget about one group, sooner or later, but it will collapse.
Okay, that's interesting. Many of you now mentioned that you have often, when you start this, you have lots of different tools and lots of different needs, actually. And Laurent, you also showed this in your presentation, that you have Dropbox and Gmail and sometimes Teams and SharePoint and whatever there is out there, basically. Now, if I'm coming back to Alex's question about the GDPR, the GDPR topic, actually, when I am talking to my business customers and tell them about the cloud and the journey, the cool thing is to reduce tools, that you have a better knowledge about where your data is and where it's going. And maybe this is a country-related question. I'm not kind of sure. So how your experience with GDPR in that area?
In my side, there is no problems, because in France, all the data centers are located in France, so there's no problem with that. I know that in Switzerland, the problem is not the same, but no, I do not have any specific answer for this.
Mm-hmm. How about Poland, Marcin?
No, we don't have any issue. We don't have any data center, but one coming. But the bigger problem is that people create their own tools and they hide the data inside the data centers in universities, and then one leak, another leak, data loss, etc. So it's a bigger problem than GDPR.
Interesting. And how about Germany, Luise? No issues here as well?
Well, so I think we do not have issues, but we like to see some. So I think lots of organizations use this GDPR thing as an excuse to not really think about it, to not really do their homework, to not really take advice, but rather just like sit around with a beer and think, yeah, but well, I read something on the internet and perhaps it might be true, so we don't know, so actually, yeah, well, rather not. And I always tell them, hey, read the laws, get a lawyer on board, do the, oh wait, what is that in English? The Datenschutzabschätzung. I don't know. So it is the real assessment on what is happening GDPR wise, and really do this. And yes, German's workers council. So this is always a big issue, but if you know how to address them, and if the cloud is just like not some evil thing anymore, but hey, there is a data center, we have those in Frankfurt and in Berlin or in Amsterdam or in Dublin or wherever they are. And you could also visit them. And this is the security that we do apply. And this is the data security we can apply. Then probably they change their behavior and their mind as well. And yeah, make it possible to deal with that. But first, they want to have something that works as an excuse. And it's not a reason, but it's just like, yeah, we do not want to think about it. So in my experience, at least.
And once again, I see similarities to the business side, so to say.
Well,
okay.
It's about people, right?
It's about people. Interesting, right? We had this. We talked about within our group a few questions beforehand, and one still sticks in my mind actually, and that is when I go out and talk to my customers. Many times I have to tell them about all the good things that will happen when they move to the cloud, or what's possible and how this works. So my customers don't exactly come to me all the time. Quite often I have to convince them that is something good. How is that in the educational area? You've mentioned things like there is a journey and there's a new world that we have to approach. Do you get the customers because are they coming to you like in search for help, or how does this work in educational area?
Yeah, definitely. It is. Right now, the situation is different before the pandemic, and right now, before the pandemic, yeah, many schools said, okay, cloud. Do I need cloud? Do I need it right now? And then you have to convince, and then you have to show benefits. But right now, they have no choice. With the school's closure, they have to set up online learning. So how you are doing online learning without cloud solution? And the thing that I see right now is that most of schools deployed Teams in a hurry without setting anything. And then 1 year after, they call me and they said, okay, can you help me? I have 300 Teams. I don't know what is that Teams. I don't know who create that Teams. Teachers are using Teams with, as I said, the unique general channel, or the series of private channels, or without using OneNote. And I do not know how to ensure the perfect adoption of all of my users. Why I'm doing this? And the answer is, okay, do you have a change management plan? What are you saying? And then, okay, then you're doing your job.
Okay, how from the others?
Yeah, so usually customers do approach me and seek for help. Usually they are quite desperate. Sometimes they ask for advice before they start a project. Then I tell them, so this is how we do it. And they tell me, hey, this is not how we do it, because probably we won't need that. We will just roll out the tools and assign licenses. And I will just say, okay, probably this will work as well, but just so you know, this doubles my daily rate if you come back in a year. And then they come back in a year, and I call this the bullshit fee of my invoice. So this actually is not a joke. So because then they are quite desperate, and then they do as I tell them. So this is it's just like giving me a better position, because they already experience what does not work.
Interesting. How to educate your customers, even in the education area.
I should give a session on that, right?
Maybe.
So, let's do a session, Luise, together. I think it will be good.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah. We have a deal, sir.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So, Marcin, what are your experience with getting customers, so to say, in the educational area?
A year ago, they got Teams and just start using that. But they needed some help, maybe change something get some information, get some presentation, some basic stuff. But now, a year later, yeah, they need help. They need to clean up that mess with thousands of teams, other stuff they created. And what's interesting, they want to to teach better. They need to, they want to know tricks, how to connect with LMS, how to use Teams power, because they want to do this, but they don't know how. So that's nice shift.
That's interesting. I don't know when I hear that last time, actually, that people say, I know that there is a possibility, but I don't know how. Can you please help me? Haven't heard that in a while, actually. But since, Luise, you just talked about the bullshit fee, or that it's more expensive when they try on their own, and I think we can all relate to that. But my typical business user, they usually have like an own IT department and maybe even a training department and HR and stuff, and they have like money. They have money to educate and train and also hire consultants and stuff. Is it the same in the educational area? Well, that all sounds pretty expensive, actually.
It does not need to be very expensive. So I tell any customer, you can either pay with money.
We can keep that low.
No. So I tell all my customers, you can either pay with money or with time. So if they want to go down that path on their own and have just like minimal consultant input, but then figure out everything on their own, so all the concept that I already worked on, they can do that. So this will save money, but cost time. If they want to do it fast and good, then probably it won't be cheap, as they will need the help of a good consultant. So if you have this triangle of good and cheap and fast, you may pick 2 of them, but not 3. And most customers do understand this. And universities do not only consist of instructors and students. So there is just like, so they have IT and they have HR and they have everything like a usual business as well. It's not that, it's just that we as externs do not think about that at first if we think about educational area. But it is a whole organization, if you like it or not.
Yeah, in my side is not a question of money, because what you have to understand in difference of business is that when you open an educational tenant, this is free and you can go it for free. And when you are talking about the tools inside the Office 365 platform, if you want to use the desktop version or the application version of OneNote, this is free. You do not have to pay any license. If you want to use the Teams desktop or the Teams application, this is also free. You do not have to pay anything. So the question is, okay, why do I have to pay license? The question is simple. If you want your students or teachers to work both offline and online with documents inside Office 365, then you have to go to pay some license. But the good thing is that in educational tenant, this is not as brutal as business. It's like one user, one license. No, it's not the way it works. In educational, it is counted as FTE, a full-time employee. And basically, you pay the amount of full-time employee inside your schools. And then after, you have student benefit, which means that students will be able to deploy free the desktop version on their device. That is very good to understand. And if you want to go fast, as Luise said, if you want to ensure the perfect adoption, then you have to think about change management. If you are not doing this, that 3 years later, you will have a really big concern about, okay, why I have no return on my investment, the thing is not working. I'm losing money. Users are not adopting the solution. Why is that? Because you do not have a change management plan. So yeah, you have to consider this. Yeah, this is important.
Interesting. I think I have two more questions for you, and let's see if we can if you have time for both. Karoliina just pasted this question actually, which I think is very interesting. Do you have any like the war stories about misbehaving students in teams and how to prevent that? So
yeah. A lot a lot, because you are not doing a change management plan. What I saw most is online classes. If you do not set up anything in online classes, then students will have very fun to turn off the microphone of teachers or kick off other students for online classes. This is, if you do not have a really concern about this is not the way it has to be. But and it is also the same thing in Teams class. You have a discussion, a chat, and you have to educate students how to use the chat. And if students go wild on chat, what is good in educational tournament is that you can't mute all students inside a class. That is good. That is pretty good. You have a single button. You can select some specific students. Oh, she is very loud, or he is very loud. Just mute her, mute him. Or if you want to mute all classes because you have an important information to tell them, then you have a box, and when you check that box, students will not be able to write on a chat inside a Teams class. So that is good. And what is good also is the one-on-one private chat inside Teams. I know many schools would disable it because there was some cyberbullying problems. And what I saw last week, and it is good news from Microsoft, is that you can now supervise the chat, the one-on-one chat, and set up specific people. So this is a good answer for schools if they want to reactivate the one-on-one chat, but reactivate it depending on certain people.
Okay, please, Marcin, tell me that students in Poland behave.
I think the same way as others. So, but yeah, educate. You must educate them. Must simply tell them what's okay, what's not, and configure your meetings. Configure, because misconfiguration. Yeah, that's the main problem. Flying something from anonymous users is yeah, what's common. Currently, you can kick anonymous user from Teams and prevent from rejoin. So that's a good feature. But yeah, before that, it was easy to join from some, in private browser and do weird stuff. But
okay,
yeah, educate and educate again.
I think there are like two sides, right? To educate the people and to have a governance, because that's not the same thing. I just read a comment.
Please do have a concept. So I know that some students created a new Teams team with the name of teacher, which means first name, last name, @schoolname.com is the email address of this team. They reached out via this email address to the school board or school authority to get the solutions to the upcoming tests, and this only was discovered a year after that. So please ensure that this can't happen, either by an approval or just like a blacklist for names for teams or certain group creation for students or something like that. That's, yeah.
Yeah, and what you have also to set up is a policy, a chart that students have to sign. This is the same thing for companies. Why I'm saying this? Because if you have no chart, and I saw this in one schools, teachers saw that, okay, I have 1 terabyte on my OneDrive. Okay, this is perfect to put my summer vacation pictures. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You know, so you have to really set up chart for students, for teachers, what they can do inside the platform, what they cannot do inside the platform, and they have to sign. Because if you do not have that kind of documents, and if students are doing a wrong thing or teachers are doing wrong thing, then they can tell you, I did not know, I have signed nothing. So if you want to prevent that, then set up chart and sign. You know, this is my recommendation.
Yeah, I think most of people working with most of consultants working with business sides already know that. So that's my main takeaway from today. Actually, there are lots of similarities about the adoption and change about Teams in the educational area than in the business area, and that was really interesting because I didn't know that and I didn't expect that. Actually, so thank you all for your time and for this interesting talk. I had a great time, learned a lot, and I think our time is up. Oh, yeah, 1 minute over the clock.
Yeah, we come back here. Great, guys. This was really cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you for our panelists and guests.
And then I would say, have a great summer. We will see you
We will see you probably in September, but we will get back to you later on. So stay tuned in our Twitter, ACM Teams. And we really like to thank you about all the sessions you have been attending in the first half of 2021.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Goodbye.